Sebastian, have you got white privilege? I'll tell you what we have got. We've got EU privilege. You see, we reside in France, we do. And it's a lovely place to live. And I know some people say, I don't like France because I've been to Paris and places like that. And, it can be, some places there are lovely, some places aren't. And the same in London and other big cities. But, I live in rural France. But there are so many reasons why me and my dear missus, we feel privileged living here. And we moved here before the Brexit, which screwed everything up and made it almost impossible for people to do the same as what we did. We moved here back in 2009. Now, the thing is, you see, when I say about EU privilege, because we do feel a little bit privileged living here, There's so many reasons why we say that, It's not just the fact that the healthcare works. It's pretty much free, We pay a little insurance policy once a month, but that's neither here or there, really. The treatment is quick, very short waiting times, very comprehensive. You have a pharmacy in every single little town. You even got... you've even got bakers and butchers and stuff. They still exist. Okay, you still have those sort of things in the supermarkets, but we still have all the little shops. They still exist. They're finding it harder because obviously the economic environment at the moment isn't very good. But as a whole, it's so much nicer here, and there's so many reasons why I recommend anyone moving here if it's possible for you. It's not for everybody, obviously. And you might not like our way of life, We live pretty much off grid, and we've got, you've seen my other videos, walk videos, we're surrounded by nature and farmland and what, and it's very nice. I love nature, okay? But there's so many other reasons as well. One thing is stability. It's not just France, I'm talking about in the European Union, okay? Things seem to make more sense. We do have the rise of the right-wing politics, but that usually backfires on those on the right anyway. And they have some really crazy ideas which would never ever work. But we do have the ability to travel all over the European Union. 27 odd member states, and you got the E3 and that, it's just... It's a different way of life from what we had in the UK. I was working all hours God sent just to keep our head above water. We're treading water, basically. Here, the cost of living is much lower in rural France. Taxation for the home, for instance, much lower than we were paying. We were paying around £2,000. We'd be about £2,000 now, I reckon, for our housing taxes in the UK. And we pay under 300 here. For a much larger property with land. And also the property prices are cheap, especially in rural France. It's just... It is a learning curve. Wherever you live in the European Union, it's a learning curve. But things seem to make sense. And we're living under mutual laws that are set by the European Union, plus each country has its own laws as well, its own national laws. Not everything's the same, The European Union does not dictate to the other member states because all the member states have to agree. Now, so there's that level of stability there. And I know we've got the threat of Russia and what have you at the moment. That's Russia wanting to attack us, isn't it, Or in this case, Ukraine currently. But we've got the European Convention of Human Rights. So whether you live in France, Germany, or you move from one country to the next, you're still covered. You've still got human rights. You've got every other fucking country, like for instance the United Kingdom, talking about removing your human rights if the Reform Party get in. And God knows what's going on in the United States. There ain't no rights whatsoever. What's going on over there is just mind-numbing. people are being abused left, right, and centre, and beaten up on the streets by this ice. You know, it's I was trying to make a list, and it was getting longer and longer and longer. So I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't do a list. Reasons why, living in the EU is a privilege. But for other ones, like, for instance, if you're a student, there's lots of free education, university education. The student loans are very low interest. You don't start paying it until you're working, etc. And then you got other things like, for instance, if you're a student or anybody, in fact, you can pretty much move around Europe just with your ID card. You don't need a passport. So many people I know don't have passports. They've got no interest in travelling outside of the European Union. Just use their IDs. Now, these IDs aren't forced upon you. It's just something you can apply for. So it isn't like the UK's digital ID, which is going to be an absolute abuse of privacy. So, living rural as well, it's less stress because we need less money. So it's like I don't have to work so hard to actually keep the roof above our heads. The wine is fucking cheap. You can get a bottle of wine from €1.50. It's ridiculous. I'm not saying I would buy a bottle of wine at €1.50 because it's not good wine, to be fair. But you can. And you get a drinkable bottle of wine for €2.50. And it's just, get a good bottle for under a fiver. It's cheap here. And then obviously you've got cognac as well. And then you've got French bread. There's so many reasons why I feel privileged here. Also the people, especially in rural France, they're much more friendly because they're not so stressed. You live in the cities, everyone's stressed because the cost of living is much, much higher. But if you're living in rural France or rural in Germany, even rural, anywhere that's rural, your cost of living is a lot cheaper. And especially if you're a bit of a digital nomad, it doesn't really matter where you live, does it really? Like I say, you got the European Court of Human Rights. There's also you got the European Court of Justice. So there's this mutual. There's recourse, regarding the laws that are set within the European Union and people's rights. It just makes so much sense to have this mutual, anyway, whatever you like to call it, neutrality. Oh, I don't know. We all work on a similar level playing field. So your housing's cheap, insurance is cheap. Housing insurance is a little bit high for this house because there's a lot of house, and this costs a hell of a lot of money to rebuild because it's all stone. So you're insuring a lot more. So my house insurance here is probably higher than what I would be paying in the UK, but not high per square metre, if it makes any sense. It'd be a lot lower per square metre. My car insurance is very low. Just you can live cheaply. Food is a bit on the pricey side in France, I would say, but not necessarily in comparison to what's going on in the United States at the moment. The food prices over there are shocking, like $7, $8 for a box of eggs. Fucking roll on. We just bought 30 eggs for €4, free range, bio eggs. So, there's just so many reasons. And even if you just want to whiz around in your car and go visit somewhere, you don't get stuck on the parking. In the UK, for instance, parking's horrendous. You can't even go into the supermarket without them clocking you in, clocking you out. Your mobility is hampered. The UK is not what it used to be. For lots of different reasons. For a start, the hate that's going on there at the moment isn't great. Here, I suppose that the people are oblivious to it all because of rural France. Now, a lot of people don't really follow the news that closely anyway, what's going on. So they don't really care. They just get on with their lives, which is quite a nice way to live, to be honest. So it just feels grounded, if you know what I mean. It just feels a much nicer, stable, safer place to live. And besides, if Putin did decide to nuke us, well then, quite frankly, there's less likely here, you see, that you're going to get hit by a bomb. There's nothing to hit. Unless you want to go and kill cows. You know what I mean? It just seems to make sense, you know? There's a lot of help for families here as well. Go on holiday and stuff like that. You know, in the UK, if you take your children on a holiday out of, this is down to Michael Gove, if you take your kids on holiday out of school term, in school term, well then you get fined. Here, they don't fine you for that. They consider it as part of your education. They have requests that, okay, you do this or do that. You know, like a form of homework. And that's down to each individual school, obviously. But there's a level of freedom. You know? There is a level of freedom. I recommend it. Well, I do. And I know there's a lot of people looking to get out of the United States at the moment. And I get it. And maybe if you can do it, you know, this would be the destination for you. Quite frankly. You know, Europe. As in the European Union, not the UK. Because that's got its bloody problems. And if Nigel Farage gets in, well then, not be funny, you'd probably get kicked out anyway. So, anyway, what do you think? Do you live in Europe and do you like it here? What is it that you don't like? What do you not like about living in the European Union? In your country? Yeah. Because I don't know, because quite frankly, I can't think of anything at the moment, apart from paperwork. Oh, and taxation's high, alright? If you're earning money here, taxation's high, I would say, but you get a lot for it. So there's that too, you know? And the happiest countries in the world seem to have the highest taxes, so that's a bit strange, isn't it? Anyway, don't forget to hit the old like button. And you can say, toodaloo, Sebastian. He really doesn't want a... You're shy today, aren't you? He doesn't... You're shy? See, what, go down again? Okay. Yeah, I know. Oh. Anyway, if you want to support the channel, you might feed the dog one or two. Links down below that there is. Yeah, good boy, yeah. Toodaloo.